Meanwhile, rent may soon be on the rise. At least it's looking that way. The NYC Rent Guidelines Board held its fifth meeting tonight and casted a preliminary vote to increase rent on 1 to 2 year leases for rent-stabilized units. Now, News 12's Mary Lynn Buckley joins us now with more on what this could mean for the people that live in those nearly 1 million rent-stabilized units here in the city. Mary Lynn.
Kurt, members of the board did cast a preliminary vote, and 5-4 decided they would choose to raise rent, meaning for 1 year leases, rent could increase between 2 and 4%, and for 2 year leases, rent could increase between 4 and 6%. A big argument tonight, whether or not an increase is necessary in order for landlords to keep up with the rising rate of costs.
This is the fifth meeting in a series of public meetings and hearings to determine lease adjustments for rent-stabilized housing units in New York City.
As inflation is up over 6% and expected to rise, energy costs and property taxes have also increased, a concern landlords voiced tonight.
Housing has costs. We need to make sure that buildings have the money to pay for those costs. If we don't get this right, a large number of buildings could very quickly slip into dilapidation.
We're living in an era when costs are skyrocketing post-pandemic, and there are severe supply issues due to the war in Ukraine.
But not everyone agreed. Many on the virtual call arguing the pandemic has already set New Yorkers behind dramatically on bills, and this would make things even worse.
Those 2% at the minimum would be devastating to most of the folks in this room. Landlords can cut some corners and say, I'm not going to replace that bucket this year. Tenants cannot decide not to feed their kids.
We also spoke to a representative from the Rent Stabilization Association hours before this meeting, whom agreed an increase of some sort is necessary in order to keep up with the market.
At this point, the RGB data shows alarming trends that are very dangerous for the city's aging housing stock, and substantial rent increases are necessary for building owners in order to maintain their buildings and pay their increased operating expenses.
Rent increase, not something a lot of people want to hear about, Mary Lynn, but that being said, you said this was a preliminary vote. That's important. What is the next step in this process?
Kurt, a final vote is expected to come in June, and if that's passed, this would be the highest increase our city has seen in years. In Canarsie, Mary Lynn Buckley, News 12.
All right, Mary Lynn, we'll continue to keep everyone updated on that. Meanwhile, we want to